Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we get right into the ideas that can help you think smarter. We all make decisions, right? Some good, some not so good. But do we really stop and think about why the bad ones happen? Bias? Yeah, we talk about bias a lot. It's definitely a big piece of the puzzle. But what if I told you there's another culprit, maybe even sneakier, messing with our judgment? Today, we're diving deep into noise. Now, that term might not be as familiar as bias, but it's incredibly important for understanding how we judge things. Our guide is the fantastic book, Noise, and it's co-authored by Daniel Kahneman, yep, the Nobel laureate behind Thinking Fast and Slow, along with Cass Sunstein and Olivier Sibony. Kahneman spent his whole career figuring out why we mess up decisions, and noise is his latest big insight. So our mission today, we're going to unpack what noise actually is, break down into different types, which is pretty interesting, and then the really useful part, look at how you can reduce it to make, well, smarter choices. Okay, let's jump right in. The authors don't beat around the bush. They define noise simply as a flaw in human judgment. And they say, pretty bluntly, wherever there is judgment, there will be noise. To really get a handle on this and see how it's different from bias, they use this great analogy. Imagine jungle maze competition. 3 teams, 5 people each, trying to find the center of this tricky maze in 8 hours. Team 1, they're perfect. All 5 reach the center. Boom. That's ideal judgment, 0 error. Team 2, though, they all get lost, but interestingly, they all end up together, way off in the southwest corner. That right there, that's bias. A systematic error, everyone messed up in the same direction. And then there's team 3. Our team, maybe. This is where it gets messy. One person actually makes it to the center somehow, but the other 4, they're scattered all over the place. One's north, one's east, one's south. Total chaos. That scattering, that inconsistency, that's noise. It's the random, unpredictable variation in judgment.
Yeah, that maze picture really nails it. And you see this exact pattern in the real world constantly. Think about doctors. If a whole bunch of eye doctors look at a patient and I'll say, oh, it's just overwork, but it turns out to be a serious tumor, that's bias. They all made the same mistake, systematically.
A collective miss.
Exactly. But now, same patient, same symptoms. One doctor says tumor, another says overwork, and a third thinks, maybe a side effect from medication. That's noise. Same input, wildly different outputs. And, the really tricky part is that bias and noise often show up together. Like in the maze, maybe everyone on team 3 was generally afraid of the dark parts of the maze. That's a shared bias, pushing them generally south. But then you specifically veer off towards an apple tree you spot because you suddenly got hungry. That sudden hunger, that unique diversion, that situational noise impacting your specific judgment right then. So the key difference is bias is, well, predictable in a way. It's a pattern, like always favoring short-term rewards or letting first impressions cloud your judgment too much, or, confirmation bias where you only hear what you want to hear. You can kind of anticipate those tendencies.
You can see the pattern.
Right. Noise, though, it's irregular. It's unpredictable. It's often tied to the situation. It's the unexpected hunger for that apple, or being in a grumpy mood from a fight you had before work, which then affects how you interview someone. You couldn't really predict that specific deviation beforehand.
And this is where it gets kind of alarming, actually. The real-world impact of noise. It's huge. The book gives some really stark examples from the judicial system. Get this. 2 people commit almost identical embezzlement crimes. One gets 117 days. The other gets 20 years.
Wow.
Or same bank robber, different judges. One gives 5 years, the other gives 18 years. And maybe the craziest one. 2 guys passing fake checks, slightly different amounts, like a few dollars difference. One gets 15 years, the other just 30 days.
That's staggering.
It really is. It's not just small errors. These inconsistencies completely change people's lives. It makes you question, how fair is a system when the outcome can depend so much on just who you get.
Yeah.
Or maybe even what day it is.
Exactly. And courts are just one example, maybe the most dramatic. But this noise problem is everywhere. Think about job interviews. Same candidate, different interviewers, completely different ratings.
Happens all the time.
Or performance reviews. Same employee, different managers, wildly different feedback. Doctors diagnosing the same patient, you might get different answers for things like skin cancer, heart disease, even depression. It even pops up in fields you think are super objective, like reading x-rays or fingerprint analysis. Wherever there's a human making a judgment call, there's noise. So the authors really boil it down to 2 key things. 1, judgment means noise, period. 2, noise and bias working together are what cause errors in our judgments.
Okay.
And here's a kicker. They argue that reducing noise is just as effective at improving accuracy as reducing bias. They both contribute to the overall error, so tackling either one gives you a real benefit.
Okay, so If noise is this big, pervasive issue, how do we start to get our arms around it?
Yeah.
The authors actually identified different kinds of noise. They used this really interesting study involving hundreds of U.S. federal judges. Researchers gave these judges, 208 of them, I think, the details of 16 hypothetical cases and just asked them, what sentence would you give? Now, ideally, same case, same facts.
Yeah.
Should be the same sentence, right? But yeah, no, what they found was huge variation. The average difference, the system noise, was 3.4 years.
3.5 years.
Yeah. Just think, on average, someone could get over 3 years more or 3 years less prison time just based on the luck of the draw which judge they got. That's pretty unsettling.
Definitely.
So they dug into that variation. What causes it? They found 3 main types of noise.
That's right. The first one they identified is horizontal noise, or sometimes called level noise. This is basically about the consistent differences between judges. You know, some judges are just generally tougher. They give longer sentences across the board. Others are consistently more lenient.
So like Judge Stern and Judge Lenient.
Pretty much. And this often comes down to their background, their personal beliefs, maybe political leanings, just their general philosophy. It's like some managers are always easy graders in reviews, and others are always tough. It's their baseline level.
Okay, that makes sense. What's next?
The second type is pattern noise. This is more nuanced. It's about the variations within a single judge's decisions, but based on the specific type of case.
Ah, okay. So not just their overall level, but how they react to specifics.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that generally strict judge, Judge Stern, has a surprising soft spot for, say, artists who commit crimes. Or maybe Judge Lenient gets really tough when it comes to repeat offenders or crimes against the elderly. It's not random, though. It stems from their personal values, maybe unconscious associations, like a defendant reminds them of someone they admire or dislike. These create stable patterns within their own judgment tendencies.
Interesting. So it's their personal quirks interacting with the case details.
You got it. And the third type, which is really a subcategory of pattern noise, but important enough to call out, is occasional noise, or you could call it situational noise.
Okay, situational, like tied to the moment.
Precisely. This is the noise caused by temporary, fleeting things, stuff that has nothing to do with the judge or the case, really. This is the one most of us non-professionals are probably most guilty of.
Give me an example.
Well, maybe you give more money to a charity collector on the street because your favorite sports team just won. Or an HR manager rejects perfectly good candidates because they had a fight with their spouse that morning and are just in a foul mood.
Okay. The random stuff that affects your day.
Exactly. And it happens to professionals, too. Fingerprint experts have been shown to reach different conclusions about the same print when they look at it weeks apart, maybe influenced by some irrelevant detail they were told. Or software developers giving vastly different time estimates for the exact same task, depending on, I don't know, the weather or how busy they feel that day.
Wow.
So yeah, those are the 3 big ones. Horizontal noise, the differences between people. Pattern noise, the consistent but specific variations within one person. And occasional or situational noise, the random temporary influences.
Okay, knowing all that, it feels a bit daunting. If noise is so unpredictable, especially that situational stuff, how on earth do we fight it?
That's the million-dollar question. And the authors are clear. You can't predict every single instance of noise when it's going to happen. So the strategy has to be about all-round prevention. It means improving the process you use to make judgments in the first place.
Improving the process? How?
Well, the first place to start is with yourself, with your own thinking habits. They talk about improving your cognitive style.
Cognitive style. What's that exactly?
It's basically your preferred way of thinking. Do you like digging into complex problems, or do you prefer things simple? Do you trust your gut intuition, or do you need careful analysis? Are you naturally critical or easily swayed?
Okay.
The most powerful cognitive style for cutting down noise, they argue, is something called actively open-minded thinking.
Actively open-minded.
Yeah. It means you deliberately, actively look for information that goes against what you currently believe. You're genuinely willing to change your mind if the evidence points that way. You don't just dig your heels in.
Yeah, it sounds hard.
It can be, but it's a skill you can develop. It's about consciously telling yourself, okay, my first reaction might be wrong. Let me seriously consider the other side. Even if you end up sticking with your original view, you do it after hearing everything out, not before. It's about intellectual humility, really.
That makes a lot of sense for individual decisions. But what about teams? You know, group decisions, work projects, committees. How do you get a group to be less noisy, especially if not everyone is naturally actively open-minded?
Great question. And yes, they offer a very practical framework for exactly that. It's called the mediated evaluation method. Think of it as a structured way to have a smarter group discussion. Let's use an example. Say your company is thinking about buying another company, maybe Old Wang Bakery.
Okay, acquiring Old Wang Bakery. How does this method help?
It uses a few key principles, kind of like a combo punch against noise.
Decision decomposition. You break the big, complex decision, should we buy this bakery, into smaller, distinct parts. What are the key things you need to evaluate?
Like their finances, their management team, their products.
Exactly. Profitability, management quality, product innovation, maybe potential synergies with your company. Let's say you identify 7 key dimensions. These are your mediators.
Okay, 7 factors. Got it.
Step 2, mediate evaluation. This is crucial. It relies on 2 ideas. First, independence. Each of those 7 dimensions needs to be evaluated separately and independently from the others. Ideally, you'd assign a different person or small team to each dimension. Team A looks only at profitability, Team B only at management, and so on. And critically, they don't talk to each other during this evaluation phase
Why no talk
to
to
prevent contamination.
Right.
If the finance team finds amazing profits, you don't want that positive glow to automatically make the management team look better than they maybe are, just by association. Keep the judgments pure for each factor.
Ah, okay. Independence. What's the second idea?
External view. You need to make the evaluations comparable. Instead of just saying profitability is good, try to use objective relative measures, like Old Wang Bakery's profitability is in the top 40% compared to similar bakeries over the last 2 years. Use data, use benchmarks, make it concrete.
Precisely. So the output at this stage is a report. Maybe 7 chapters, 1 for each mediator, full of facts, and a score or rating based on that external view.
Okay, so you have these independent, fact-based reports on each key factor. What's next? The big meeting.
Yep. Step 3, the decision meeting. And here the principle is resist premature intuition. You get the decision makers, the board, maybe together. They all get the report. Now, you fully expect the scores and assessments for the different factors might point in different directions. That's okay. That reflects reality. The process now is evaluate, discuss, evaluate.
Evaluate, discuss, evaluate.
First, evaluate 1. Everyone reads the report. Then, privately and independently, they score each of the 7 mediators, maybe on a simple scale using an app or just paper. You collect the scores and display them anonymously.
Anonymously, interesting. Why? Reduces groupthink and pressure from dominant voices. Then, discuss. You look at the anonymous scores. Where's the biggest disagreement? Focus the discussion there. Encourage the people whose scores were outliers to explain their reasoning, using the facts from the report. Really hash out the differences based on the evidence.
So targeted discussion on the disagreements.
Exactly. Then evaluate 2. After that focused, fact-based discussion, everyone scores the mediators again, privately.
Okay, so you've had independent analysis, anonymous initial thoughts, focused debate. Now what? Average the final scores.
Interestingly, no. The authors strongly advise against using a rigid formula to combine the final scores.
Really? Why not? Seems like the logical next step.
Because formulas can be gamed if people know how they work. Instead, after going through this entire rigorous, structured, fact-based process, the final decision buy or don't buy is made using direct, intuitive judgment, usually a vote.
So, back to intuition at the end.
Yes, but it's informed intuition now. Everyone has wrestled with the facts, heard the counterarguments, considered each factor independently. Their gut feeling is now grounded in a much more objective process. It makes it much harder for someone to object based on a whim, and the final decision is much less likely to be swayed by random noise. You've basically forced intuition to do its homework first.
That's actually brilliant. It's structured, but still relies on human judgment at the end, just smarter judgment.
Sure.
And I like how you could potentially use just parts of it, maybe just the independence principle for certain tasks.
Absolutely. It's flexible. You can use bits and pieces or the whole thing for really critical decisions. It works for individuals thinking through options or huge organizations making strategic bets.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. This deep dive really opened my eyes to noise. It's not just bias we need to worry about. This random scatter in judgments is a huge source of error.
Right, and tackling noise is just as important as tackling bias if you want more accurate outcomes.
We saw it comes in those 3 flavors. The overall differences between people, horizontal, the specific patterns within one person, pattern, and that really common temporary stuff, situational noise.
Yeah.
And the good news is we can fight it. Personally, by working on being more actively open-minded, really challenging our own assumptions.
Crucial first step.
And systemically, using structured methods like that mediated evaluation approach, breaking things down, keeping evaluations independent, using objective comparisons, and delaying that gut reaction until after you've grappled with the facts.
Those principles, structure, independence, external view, resisting premature intuition, they're powerful tools against noise.
So what's the big takeaway here?
Well, I'll just put it pretty profoundly. A world with less noise is just a better world. Imagine the savings, the improved safety, better health outcomes, fairer treatment in courts and workplaces. Just preventing countless mistakes we don't even realize are happening due to noise. This isn't just some academic exercise. It's a real chance for you, listening right now, to actually make better decisions, big or small, personal or professional. It's about refining how you approach judgment. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, where noise might be hiding in your own decision-making.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully these insights help bring a little less noise and a lot more clarity to your world. Until next time, keep digging deeper.